Welcome to the No Choice, Love Yourself podcast with me, Praggya Beniwal, your host. I'm a 2-4 mental projector on the right angle cross of penetration that is looking to have deep and real conversations with people in their human design experiment. My guest today is Kathelijn Brouwers, a 1-3 Splenic Projector on the right angle cross of consciousness. Kath is an energy projector that is here to serve the collective with her logical judgments and her tribe with her instinctive transmissions. As an investigative martyr of consciousness, Kath finds herself in mutative environments that help her see what can probably be fixed through trial and error and what cannot. In this episode, we talk about her challenges as a projector mother and how she navigates Penta dynamics in her family as an aware projector. I hope you enjoy the show. I think the first question that I have is, you're a projector mother, right? Let's start there. You're someone that has two motors, so it's not like there isn't really an availability of energy, but it isn't the generating motor, right? It isn't you responding in the moment all the time. You have energy when you are invited. And there's a lot of talk about projectors and raising a family, right? And how it's not the most natural role for a projector to play. So what I want to hear from you is what your experience has been as a projector mother. And even before we get into the experience that you have now as a projector mother, I want to go back all the way to, how was your pregnancy? What was that experience like? Did you face any difficulties or challenges? And then slowly moving forward with having one child and the challenges that that brought, and then having another one.
Yeah. Um, so going back to my first pregnancy, I had a very easy pregnancy, to be honest. I didn't face too many difficulties, but I was tired. Yes, I was very much tired, especially the first trimester. Um, and then the second trimester, it was better because then yeah, the baby is ready. It just needs to grow. It just needs to grow. Um, and I think I got a bit more energy. Um, but then I started a new job when I was 4 months pregnant. And a lot happened in that job. Um, so I was replacing someone, and then in a month, um, that person left, but another person left as well. So it just happened that I was the only one um, um, in that job that was responsible for a whole team, and I was pregnant, and I wasn't worked in very well. So that was very challenging for me. And then I needed to um, um, have maternity leave earlier than I uh, yeah than I should have. So I think that was really hard for me. The baby wasn't growing as good as they thought she was growing, so I needed more and more rest. And after a few weeks, I think then I came to my third trimester. Um, the pregnancy was getting yeah, better. She was growing. My belly was growing. I was, I think, 28 weeks, and you didn't see a belly at all. And I'm very tall, so the child could grow. Had a lot of space to grow, but still, they were a bit concerned that she was too small. So I got a lot of scans every week, and yeah, and I just rested a lot. And then I think getting more into the end of the pregnancy, um, yeah, I was good actually. I didn't have any other complaints. It was just the tiredness, and then combining pregnancy with a job, a new job where I was responsible for a whole team. Um, yeah, that was too much for me as a projector.
Was
Yeah.
that job a generator job, like where you had
Yes.
Mhm.
100%. Yes.
Not really a projector job where you're
No,
managing
not a
people, but
projector job.
actually
Not at
help.
all.
Hmm.
Yeah. Yeah. Not invited.
Ah,
So, yeah.
that's never fun.
Yeah. So, and I didn't know about human design back then. So, I was completely exhausted. Yeah. Yeah.
And this was your experience with your first child?
First
And
job.
did anything change with the second one?
Oh, the second one, I was even more tired. But I think this is what all mothers will recognize, because you have a toddler as well. So you can't just stay in bed the whole day or just rest whenever you want to rest. No, you have a toddler to take care of. So yeah, I think that whole pregnancy, I was tired. But besides the tiredness, I was very fine. I didn't have any other complaints. So, and both the birds went very well. Um, Yeah, it's funny that you asked that question, by the way, because I'm thinking there was something very much different with the first pregnancy comparing to the second pregnancy, um, to the end of the pregnancy. So I was having a manifestor, the first one, in my belly, and I didn't know that, of course. But I wanted to completely um, have no contact with anyone. So I went offline 2 or 3 weeks before before I gave birth. I didn't send a notice to anyone. I didn't inform anyone. I removed WhatsApp. I removed Instagram. I was just completely offline. I didn't want to talk with anyone. I wanted to be left alone in my own space. No one could be there. Um, and then she came she came 1.5 week later. So it was a long period for the people that cared about me. They were all a bit stressed, like, what happened? And I tried to reach out to my husband, and he said, no, she's fine. She just wants to be left alone. And when our daughter was born, I also didn't want to have too many people in our house. I didn't want to have so many visitors. I didn't want her to be held by anyone, because it was really hard with our daughter. We had a really challenging time. She was crying a lot, a lot. And that, I think, the first whole year, she was, she looked upset the whole time. And I tried so much. I tried everything, because when you are a parent and your child is upset, you just want to have answers. You don't want that. You want what's best for your child, and seeing your child being upset, that's heartbreaking. And I got even more exhausted, because I was already exhausted from the pregnancy and the work and getting back to work, and then dealing with a baby that's crying all day long, all night long. It
Just
was
just for context, can you tell our listeners what the design of your daughter is?
So she's a 2/4 emotional manifestor, channel of openness, channel of recognition, and then channel of awareness. So yeah,
So that's a very emotional child, and
very
you're
emotional.
you're undefined in your emotional center, right? So that conditioning coming into your, and is your husband emotional or unemotional?
Unemotional. Yes.
So
Together, we're unemotional. So,
oh, even
madness.
in your connection chart together, the solar plexus isn't
Yeah.
defined. So that's
This is the
interesting.
place. Interesting, right? This is the place where we learn, and we got two very emotional defined children. It's bizarre. Yeah.
And when you're not used to that in your household on an everyday basis, when that energy announces itself in the form of impact, in the form of a manifestor, that's really quite something to take in. And of course, like as you're explaining, the mind is going to go bonkers with that conditioning because one, you're feeling the emotional wave, you're feeling the impact of the emotional wave, you're also feeling, you know, the root pressure that comes with the channel of recognition. So this is a really adrenalized emotional being that has deep impact. You're feeling that and you're not used to that. You think maybe you're doing something wrong. You think that maybe there's something very wrong going on here. And of course, the mind can create all sorts of stories. Like the mind can come in, it's like, how do I make this baby happy? Like, what can I do? It doesn't matter if I'm exhausted. It doesn't matter if I'm burnt out. It doesn't matter if I'm recovering well or not. I need to make these feelings go away. And as a projector, you can run yourself to the ground trying to manage that if you're not aware of that. So my question to you is then, and I know that your other child is also an emotional child. So my question to you is, how did you work with that conditioning before you got to know about human design? And how has the awareness of the emotional wave changed the way you interact with your children in your everyday life?
That's a really good question. And in the beginning, I amplified those emotions. And I'm still doing that. But now I'm having more awareness around that. So as you said, I wanted to solve it. I wanted to be gone. I thought there was something wrong with me. And I grew up in a household where only my sister was emotional defined. The rest was emotional undefined. So it was so heavy for me, completely burned out. As I told, I trying to do everything to get that away. And now I have that awareness. I know now that this is their power. This is their uniqueness. This is what they can share with the world. So now I'm encouraging it, which is not always, which, I'm trying to do my best in it, but it's sometimes I still think, okay, no, you're now not encouraging them to show their emotions. So it's still a bit of a learning aspect, but now I'm saying to them, okay, you can cry. It's okay to cry. You can be upset. Yeah, show me that anger. Let it out. It's so natural for you. So I'm telling them as well, especially to our daughter, because she has a very strong voice as well. Her throat center is super defined, a lot of activations. Yeah, I'm just telling them this is your superpower, so show it and never hold that in. And at the same time, sometimes it is too much for me and my husband, and we think, okay, please go to your room. You can be upset, you can cry, but please go to your room because we can't take it anymore. It's too much. And then they are still very young because our daughter is 5 and our son is 2 years old. They don't want that. They don't want to do that alone. They want to do that with us. They want to show their emotions with us. And yeah, that's a real challenge sometimes. But
yeah, and the solar plexus is social by its nature. You know, there is really something inherently social in that center. Ultimately, it is the future, right? Through the rays, that kind of awareness. It's not an individual awareness, it's a group awareness. There is that sense of socialness and community in there inherently. And also, as really young children, I mean, your safe space, your outer authority, your go-to people that can teach you about yourself, that can empower you as yourself, are definitely your parents. And every child needs that. It's a part of the developmental cycle of every child. And yet, as a parent, there is a real challenge here because you can't really show up as yourself when the conditioning that you're experiencing is completely dysregulating you. And that's the lesson, I think, here for you and your husband. And I live in a home with emotionals, and I'm an undefined emotional. So I can really relate to that, that there is a lesson here that is about the nervous system, that is about learning about the emotional wave and how to regulate ourselves by ourselves, but also how to regulate together. And
Yeah.
regulating together requires for all of us to confront our truth and be intimate about it and be open and vulnerable about it, which by itself is something that the homogenized world does not appreciate, does not teach, does not empower within us. So it is really up to us now as aware beings how we can find solutions to meet ourselves, but then to also meet those people in our lives that bring that difficulty to the table, right? That can potentially bring that dysregulation. And how do we meet them, but how do we also meet ourselves? And I think the work that is being done here is not just you as a parent doing it, but also the child who is gaining awareness of their own emotional system. And I think there's a huge learning process with the emotional wave as well. This is something that I've watched with slightly more mature emotionals, that they do get to a place where they really recognize their wave, they're in touch with it. And because they're in touch with it, they recognize that this isn't a forever feeling. And because it isn't a forever feeling, then I don't have to lose my shit over it. Then I don't have to make it the end of the world, even though it sometimes does feel like the end of the world, right? And watching your child progress through that is really a process. And I think the other thing that I wanted to talk to you about is you have a defined ego. Does your husband have a defined ego?
Yes.
And I know both your children don't.
Yeah.
So how does that conditioning show up, and how do you teach them that they don't have to prove their worth to you, that they don't have to prove their worth to themselves, because that's where it comes from, right? I don't have the willpower, and therefore I think I'm unworthy, and therefore I need to prove to myself and others that I'm valuable, that I
Yeah.
deserve to be here. And I know, again, both my parents have a defined ego. Me and my brother don't. So I know that conditioning quite up close and personal, and how difficult it can be as a child to receive that and to constantly amplify that and burn yourself out. Like, I will do this because I want you to think I'm valuable. I will do that. I will be nice. I we couple that with the solar plexus that we're talking about, right? So there's you and your husband that are constantly trying to please, and then there's your children that are constantly trying to prove their worth. So how does that show up, and how do you manage that with awareness?
Yeah. So first, let me get a bit back to the solar plexus, because I have something to add what I'm trying to learn my children and myself in getting those healthy emotional defined and healthy unemotional defined conditioning. So when they are very emotional and in a wave, no matter if it's up or down, I'm taking it all in and it's getting too much for me at some point. I just try to step back. And what I notice when their wave is when it's over, they're completely fine. So this is what I noticed, that the emotions can feel so big and so heavy for me, but when it's done, they're completely fine. They're like, okay, this just happened. No, nothing. They just continue on playing. But for me, I took it all in, and my nervous system it's I don't even know how to describe it, but it's like I'm blocked. There's no smile. There's nothing. And then the kids ask me, "What's going on, mommy? Why are you happy? Are you not happy?" And then I'm trying to explain to them, no, it's all good, it's all fine. There were just big emotions, and now I just need some time off. I'm just going to sit in my room. If there's anything you need help, come to me, but please give me some space so I can be with myself, because that is what I need, and that has nothing to do with you. And then I'm coming back to the Defined Heart Center. You don't have to prove anything to me, because I love you, and I'm taking a step away from you is not something that you did anything wrong, or that you couldn't show your emotions, or that you now have to make it up to me. It's not about that. Maybe it does feel like that you have to make it up to me, but please don't do that. I'm taking my time off, and I'll be back whenever I'll be back. And sometimes, and of course, when they're very young, that's impossible. So it's really hard for the parents that are dealing with newborns, because they are in your aura constantly. So that's a different level. But now I'm trying to teach them as well that I need my time after huge emotions. Yeah, so this is how I'm trying to find my way in dealing with that. And also with the heart center, I think this is this is their biggest problem. It will be their conditioning. And I know that there's nothing I can do about it, because I will, no matter how much I love them, I will conditioning them with my heart center, with my ego. So that is already an awareness that, yeah, it doesn't change anything directly, but it's to realize that is already making a difference. And I'm just trying to tell them, okay, it's not about that you need to prove yourself. So, especially with our daughter, at some point she was asking me all those questions that, do you think I've eaten enough? Do you think this looks good to each other? Or do you think, she was really searching for my what I think about it. So she was really proving herself to me. And then I said, okay, it doesn't matter what I think, or because I think you are beautiful, and I cannot feel if you have eaten enough. What's your belly saying? Are you full? Do you need more food or not? And then I'm just keep repeating, you don't have to prove yourself. You don't have to show me you're worthy, because I love you. And I think I'm really aware of that pattern showing up in her life. So it's nice to know that I'm having a defined heart center and she's having an undefined heart center, but it doesn't mean anything if you can't relate to her story. Where in her life is that showing up? So, for example, in her school, she's now in the first year of school. Well, they have a system with making red choices and green choices. So if you, for example, hit a child, you're making a red choice. And she got so obsessed with those red and green choices, and she would be crying and get so upset when she made a red choice. And I thought, okay, wait, let's zoom out. Let's see what is happening here. And then I thought, okay, so she's having an undefined heart center. So she will do everything to prove to make green choices, because that means that she is a good kid. And then I thought, okay, this is the heart. So I told her, I had that conversation with her, because she was saying about the friends, she's always making red choices. She's not a good child. And I said, well, it's not about being a good child or not being a good or bad child. It's not about making red choices or green choices. I mean, sometimes you have to make red choices to know to know how this game is played. And if you make a red choice, you're not a bad child. You don't have to prove yourself by making green choices all the time. So I think it's very important that you know the design, but then know how to translate that in their life. So how is it showing up? I think that is what I'm trying to be very focused on. And focused. I'm not a very focused person, but maybe that's
Projector focus. Projector
Yeah.
guidance.
Yeah, projector focus to see, okay, how is this showing up and how can I learn her as soon as possible that she doesn't need to prove herself.
I
Yeah.
feel so at peace listening to you talk about that because it's such a special thing to offer to a child that has an undefined heart, that you are valuable no matter what you do or don't do, no matter what you push through or don't push through. Because I definitely grew up with the biggest disease in my life was definitely, I need to be a good daughter.
Yeah.
That was, I need to prove to them that I am worthy of their love, that I'm worthy of their care, that I'm worthy of their attention. And that really negatively impacted me because it took me so far away from my own essence. It was not even until I was 24 or 25 that I really started to ask myself, what is important to me other
Yeah.
than being good?
Yeah.
What feels good for me, not what my mind thinks is good for me.
Yeah.
And I didn't even realize my own priorities. I never realized the kind of person that I am. I never realized what my inherent interest or genius aspects or talents were, because my mind was so focused on strategically trying to meet the expectations of others. So it's such a gift to be able to offer that to your child from a really young age. And I think this is why human design is here, right? It's not really here for the adults. It's here for the children, the next generation that doesn't have to decondition in the ways that you and I are deconditioning right now, because we've been conditioned for all these years of our life. Children that are brought up with awareness, not that they're not experiencing conditioning, but that they're so in touch with who they are as beings and how to make decisions as themselves in the world and how to nourish themselves, that they can actually neutralize conditioning and not get distracted by all the noise in the world and not get distracted by who they think they should be and actually get to live out their purpose. Because we really cannot live out our purpose in the world. We cannot bring out our uniqueness. We cannot offer our unique self-reflective consciousness in the world unless we are in touch with ourselves, unless we navigate the world as ourselves. And that's the biggest gift of human design, really. It's not you and I. It's really the children that get to come into the world as themselves and live as themselves and see how society reorganizes itself when people are themselves, when they do value themselves, when they do recognize that difference is not a threat, that I bring something to the table and you bring something to the table. And if it's correct for us to share that, then we'll share that, and we'll share that for the amount of time that we're meant to share that. And then we can continue on our individual paths. There's really something beautiful. And I think this is pointing to the future that we're moving into, where there isn't this background frequency of the cross of planning that is organizing humanity, but that humanity gets to a place where they have to really organize themselves. And I think projectors are going to play that role, right? And I can already see you playing that role in your family Penta and unit of being able to look at your children as the beings that they are, having awareness of who you are, having awareness of not just the individuals, but also the Penta dynamics. And that's another topic that I really want to touch on with you, because I don't think it's talked about enough. I think, and it's probably not talked about enough because there's probably not enough awareness of how Penta dynamics really affect our lives. So how would you describe a Penta? How do you see that showing up in your life and conditioning you and your family unit?
So I just what the things you just told me or told us, I think that is so on point to raise nine-centered beings. But the difficulty, here it comes, is Penta. It is so, so, so incredible hard to do that because of the Penta. And to come back to that question, so a Penta is, for everyone who don't know what a Penta is, whenever 3 persons are in aura together, something different appears. It's a bit mysterious and it's a bit scientific to talk about, but when 3 people in aura are together, a transauric form is formed. And that is what we call a penta. So it's with 3 persons, 4 persons, or 5 persons. And you have 2 types of transauric forms. You have the penta and you have the wa. But most families here nowadays are penta. So this penta is having an enormous impact on who we are as an individual, because as soon as that transauric form is there, you're not completely yourself anymore. So it's so hard to be yourself. It's impossible to be completely yourself in a penta. So that makes it very complicated to be yourself, but also for your children to be their selves, to raise them as a unique individual. And then this is the penta in your family, but you go out the door and there are pentas. And the penta is such a pressure. It's competitive. It's the penta just it's a form that's just want to go one direction, and it's just want to show off how good you are doing according to the society, how good your family is doing, how it's all showing off. So it's really hard to step out of that. So we all want to be different. But when it's come to Penta or family, we don't want to be different. So you have this enormous conflict.
This is the biggest challenge for a 9-centered being. This is what we're navigating, because a 7-centered Homo sapien was here in essence to be mentally strategic in order to survive. And it did play its role. We are crossing the 8 billion mark when it comes to human beings on the planet. We have an enormous amount of human beings that are participating in this survival game. And yes, our genes have succeeded. We have survived. But it's not the point of us. It's not the point of Homo sapiens and transitus. You and I are here to share our self-reflective consciousness. You and I are here to share our uniqueness. But the trouble that we find ourselves in, and again, the penta is the future. Let's not forget that. It's not like we can bypass that. I mean, the raves that are coming in, the next species of human that are coming in, that's about a whole different kind of penta. So it's not like we can ever bypass the penta, because the program is moving towards penta consciousness. But you and I are here to figure out with awareness how we can still be self-reflective through witnessing, through being aware of what these penta dynamics are, being aware of how we get caught into this entity, this magnetic field that has only one direction, and that direction is material growth.
Material success, do better, be better. Because how more material success you have as a penta, the bigger the chance your offspring will be successful and will have offspring. And that means that the genes are
multiplying.
Yeah, exactly. So this is a huge force that's controlling us constantly. And exactly what you said about the 7-centered, it's just so fear-based, strategic. That is not who we are. But we are caught in this penta, you call an identity. We are caught in this, and that makes it so difficult to do it different.
Exactly. Unless you have awareness, that is the solution here. That is the thing that we have to have in order to be able to express our unique purpose despite being in pentas, right? Despite having no choice, because there is really no choice in being part of pentas. It's how we live. It's how humanity has organized itself.
Yeah.
But if you know that you're caught up in this larger conditioning that doesn't really value your individuality, because when we do look at the pentagraph, or we do look at the design of the penta, and again, these are not even centers. It's like a vortex. It's an energy field, right? So you can't look at the zones as gates or channels, or the centers as centers. But if we are to see what's really the design of a penta, it's the sacral center, the G, and the throat. So it's energy moving all the way up to the throat, right?
Yeah.
So there's no awareness here. And also everything that else that exists in the body graph is ignored, is not important to the penta. It's not something that the penta considers. So the penta isn't necessarily invested in your success. The penta isn't necessarily invested in my success. I know both of us have very few activations in the penta activation. So I mean, our success has nothing to do with the success of the penta. And yet you have your family, I have mine. And not just that, we're constantly moving in and out of pentas in the world. When you go to the grocery shop, you're moving through a penta. When you go to work, you're moving through a penta. You're probably working with your teammates, and that's a penta.
Yeah.
And oftentimes I think people can feel so ignored in those dynamics, and yet find themselves in such a helpless place. It's the love and hate for the family. I think that's the best way to describe it. It's like, I love my family, but I also don't like them, because I don't think I can fully be myself around them. Like, I can only be parts of myself around them, right? And again, the awareness piece here is that there's no other way to show up in a penta than to show up limited. And you have to figure out for yourself how you get to experience your individuality out in the world, and how you get to express your purpose out in the world as yourself despite that. So what is it that helps you? I know, and first of all, describe to me, do you feel the energetic force, like when all of your family members are gathered together? How does that feel in comparison to how you feel, say, in a connection just with your husband or just with one of your children? Do you feel that palpably, that difference? And what do you do to neutralize that conditioning, or to navigate that conditioning, or to continue to make decisions that are authentic for you?
Yeah, good questions. It took some time to really feel the penta, because you can't grasp it, you can't feel it, you can't see it. It's very untouchable, but you can see the effects of it. You can see the results of it. So I'm very lucky now that this year I live now in the UK, and we moved last summer, and I've been this whole year mostly just with my son. So it's one-on-one. It's totally different than when our daughter is there as well, and when my husband is there as well. So what I feel is that I'm not completely myself. I can feel that now. And it was always there, but I always thought that I was myself. And now I know that I'm not a weird person, or that there's nothing wrong with me. It's just okay. I'm not completely myself. And that is totally fine. So what I can feel that I react differently, that I have, for example, less patience, or that I become irritated faster, that there's more tension than when I deal one-on-one with my children. So those are signs that I can see, okay, this is real, this is happening. And of course, I'm a projector, so we are better in focusing one-on-one. But there is more to it. yeah, so that is how I feel. What was the other question you asked me?
I
You
don't know,
said,
but I have another one. I have another
you,
one that I'm thinking about right now. So you mentioned a really, really good point that you're a projector and you're really designed to be focused one-on-one. And that's when you experience a lot of success in your life, right?
yeah,
Where you have this family setting in which you almost feel like you're in the middle of it and you don't want to be in the middle of it.
yeah,
I have found the way that I deal best with Penta dynamics is to be a little bit on the outside of it, to watch it and to not take it really personal. But then again, it becomes really difficult for you because you're the mother and there
yeah,
are expectations from
yeah,
that role itself. There's so
yeah,
much that we think that we should be, that we should do. There's so much that we know, we've been taught that this is how a mother shows up, this is my
yeah,
role, these are the things I need to contribute, blah blah
yeah,
blah blah blah. I need to keep the family together, I need to do this, I need to do the traditions, so much, right? And your natural tendency as a projector would be to be on the outside of it, but you're constantly being involved
yeah,
in it, right? So I think that's one of the things that I have found really helpful, as much as I can, to be in the Penta, but also to be outside of it. And also to never agree or disagree when the Penta is going on about what it's going on about. Because a lot of the times in these dynamics, what I witness is that I will agree with things that I don't necessarily agree with, or
yeah,
I will go along with an opinion that isn't really my own opinion,
yeah,
because that's the energy of the group. Like that is where the group is moving. So do you notice that as well, that you tend to show up not as your full self, but also that you tend to agree to things that your inner authority isn't necessarily on board with, and later you come back to your space and you're like, why did I go on with that?
yeah, yeah, 100%. And I think that's why it's so important to not make a decision when you're in a Penta. I'm a splenic projector, so my spleen knows what to do. But to be honest, in a Penta, I'm not so in touch with my spleen. I can't really feel my spleen. So yeah, that is already a challenge. So there have been situations that I agreed to something where I later feel, no, that's not what I want to do. And then, well, turn that back, it's really hard for me because that means that I have to confront people. And with the undefined emotional center, you don't want to confront people. Yeah, and I think um, there is so much going on in the Penta. There's so much nuances to that, and it's for each individual so different as well, because we were born in a specific Penta, and we carrying that conditioning from our birth family with us. And I think a lot of us grew up, well, or it was all bad, and you think, okay, I never want to do that again. So when I create my own family, I'm going to do it differently. I'm going to do it better, which is now makes me so laugh.
Propaganda
I know,
101.
I know, because or you had a really good experience with your bird family and you want to exactly do the same. But that if you don't realize this penta thing, you will be lost. You will be completely trying to either not get the way you were raised, or you will try to get that way how you were raised, while you're creating a whole different penta, because no one, that penta you're creating yourself, has never been there because the persons weren't there. And you don't know, maybe it's even more dysfunctional, or well, not even more, because then you're you make comparing comparison, and that's not the point. But I think it's really important to understand that no matter how hard you worked on yourself, or how good your intentions are, you have no influence on how the penta is going to look. You don't know what kind of child will be there, what that child will bring into in the family, in the penta. So I think that is already such a big thing to think about, that you cannot control that. Because I had in mind for a long time, since I was a child, once I will have my family of my own, I'm going to do it better. I'm going to do it differently. I am going to have that perfect family. Well, and if I didn't know this, I would have beat myself up for not getting that. Because what? I worked so hard on myself. I did all those things. Why? It can be a really, it's becoming a new story in your mind. And
100%.
also for your children, if you're not aware of it, because they will take it in and they will think, and then it's just repeating itself.
It's this whole idea of a family that's fed to you, where the picture that's presented by the pentas, whether underneath it energetically they're functional or dysfunctional, and we know this, most pentas are dysfunctional, they have gaps. So it's not that the reality of a penta really comes through out in the public. The demonstration, the expression of a penta that we have seen growing up, you watch movies, you look at you hear people talk about families, that the way that they present the concept of a family is so, I don't even know the word. It's so far from reality of that
Yeah.
family. And all of us, every single one of us in our mind thinks that my family is missing this, like on the inside, internally, we feel this, like, why doesn't my family have these traditions? Like, why am I not experiencing the safety that everyone talks about when it comes to family? Or why do I feel like there's always tension in my family? Or why do I feel like we're always running out of material resources in my family when it seems like other families are doing really well? So what I think I'm trying to say is that the penta propaganda is that, look at me, look at my family, and look at how great we are, and look at the legacy that we're leaving behind, and look at what we've been able to accomplish. But that's just the propaganda. That's just the fantasy of the trans-auric penta itself. It won't get there. It will produce any amount of children in order for it to get there, right?
Yeah.
But the reality is that families are dysfunctional. Most families are dysfunctional. And actually, even if you have a completely functional penta, that's still not a guarantee that the individuals in that family are going to be thriving, fulfilled, and happy, right? So that's one of the things that we need to realize, that conditioning is harming us. Making ourselves wrong for the kind of family that we have, for the kind of experiences that we have in our family, is not helping us. We have, and we learn this when we study about the penta and look at family dynamics, right? You can't mentally fill in the gaps. You can't work hard to, for example, because I've looked at your family's pentagraph, like no matter how hard you work, you can't bring that discipline into your family penta. It's something for you to become aware of so that you don't let your mind drive you crazy over it. So what has your experience been like with the gaps that you have in your family pentagraph? And how is understanding this or having awareness of this changed your experience as a family?
Yeah. So I have to go back to my birth family because that will bring so much more nuance to my personal conditioning. So I grew up in a family. I was with 3 children. I was the youngest one. So we were a penta with 5. And we had just one gap in a flow. This is interesting to know. Okay, so there was a gap in a flow. Me and my sister were the only ones who bought roles, is how we call it, in the lower pentagraph. So you have a lower pentagraph and an upper pentagraph. My parents just brought in upper pentagraph, discipline, demonstration, tradition. those were the only three my parents brought in. I'm bringing in inner home and world. And my sister also, and then my brother, the oldest one, he is the big Penta person. He's bringing the whole individual column. He is such a dominant Penta person. So what happened is what I always found so dysfunctional in my birth Penta was that it didn't feel like we were a family. There was no inner flow. So we weren't really a family. And not that feeling like, oh, we're in this together. No. And that was what is missing. That was the only gap in our family. And the problem of the gap is not necessarily the gap, because that doesn't have to be a problem. The problem is whenever there is a problem, you will find the reason with your mind, and it's making up that reason because of that. So I don't know, it's you have a problem and you're telling, yeah, it's because we're not doing things together. And I blamed my parents so much for that we are not being a family. And this is for me such, it's been a really, big conditioning. And I really pointed to my mother that it was because of her, and this is going to be a story, a really hard story. And also to my dad. And at some point I thought it was because of my sister. And then I thought, no, it's because of my brother, but it wasn't just there, and it was no one's fault. So everyone is helpless in that. And there can be blaming someone of an energy that's not necessarily in your family represented can do so much harm, so much unnecessary harm. How many older people, parents, are alone because of family problems? And it's probably not even their fault. I'm not saying it's okay to abuse your child or to hit. No, not at all. But you can understand now how the family energy is flowing or not flowing, that it is not necessarily their fault, So if I go back to my birth family, I really blame my parents that for them it was all about how we looked on the outside. It was not how we looked on the inside. And I really blame them for that. So who cares what neighbor Jane thinks about us? Who cares about that? It's about it. We are not feeling as a family. What else matters? So that has been a big conditioning for me. And that is a very painful part in me. So I have a husband, and then, what I find so interesting is the one thing he's bringing in a Penta with the gap I've had in my birth family. The one thing that was missing in his birth family, not the one thing they had more gaps, was home. What am I bringing in a family? Home. And I'm not necessarily saying this, that you look in a partner, the things you're conditioned, but it's more that it's a really big story in your life. And if you think too much about that, it will drive you crazy. Like, what does my feeling any, is there anything I have control of or not? But I find it wildly interested when he brings in inner flow. The only thing that I was missing, and that the thing that I wanted so badly to have that. So inner flow is the glue of the family. So it brings everyone together. But what I find is interesting, because my husband is working a lot, when he's leaving the Penta, the inner flow is gone. So I'm with 3 of them, and of course more is happening. So as 2 parents, suddenly you're just 1 parent, so you have to do everything, that's already a thing. But then we go from 4, because normally we're with 4 and we are stable at home, safe at home, we're going to compromise tension. So with the 3 of us, there's already a big shift, and that is equally for him as for me. When I'm leaving, it's also for him, there's more tension with 3. than 4. But when he's leaving, on top of that, the inner flow is leaving. The glue is missing, it's going out. And normally it's there. So we all miss that. And I just have a perfect example for that a few days ago, because he wasn't there. I cannot go sitting on the table with my kids. It's just impossible. It's madness. It's, I cannot even describe it. It's just, it looks so simple. Okay, dinner is there. We go on the table. We sit on the table together. We just have our meals. It's just not possible. And then suddenly it feels really hard to do things together, because the glue is missing. And I feel that, especially with our daughter as well, she's feeling that also. So she is getting angry and mad and emotional, and she yelled at me that you are so boring whenever dad is not here. You are so boring. It's so much more fun than when he is there. And I thought, yeah, well, it is different when he's not there. There is more tension, and he's leaving, and we don't feel as a family that much as when he's there. So yes, there is a difference. Instead of starting that blame game and shaming each other, this is very valuable for me to know. But I'm going to be honest, because it's also more to show that it's really hard. So you have the knowledge, you know how it's working, but really doing so is a different story. And I wanted to say, I got it. Because daddy is not here, and that feels different. But I was completely in the Penta pressure, and I didn't say that. I said something mean, which I'm not very proud of, which is kind of immature for me to say to a child. So I said something that, well, I'm away soon, so you will have your daddy, It's really, really hard to say. It's not what I'm not a good parent, or well, the best parent. I'm trying to do my best, but I have make my mistakes as well. And it's just a pent-up pressure. It's just that boiling, cooking, and then the tension is there, and then we all explode. But then my son went away, and we were with the two of us, and she said suddenly, "I'm sorry, Mom, I didn't mean that." And I said, "Me too. It was really, I shouldn't have said that." And it does feel different when daddy is not there, but that's not your fault. That's not my fault. That's nobody's fault. So that is how you can overcome this penta and really invest in your one-on-one relation with each individual, because then you can work on your relationship, and then you can learn them also. Okay, we are a family, Penta, but not using the word Penta, we are a family, but we're not a perfect family, and that's okay. That's just how it is, and we're doing our best to make whatever this is happening. And I think this is, for me, it's really helpful to know this and to really break this conditioning, because it's funny that when my husband is leaving, I'm in the kind of the same environment as I grew up. So that old wound is cutting open, it's open again. So now I feel that I can finally heal that. So
Beautiful. Like, I cannot tell you the joy that I feel inside my body when I hear about like the amount of awareness that you bring to the table for your family. And again, it's not about perfection at all, even though if you turn your channel of judgment inwards, you can be very, very self-critical, and that's never helpful. But I think it is really, really displaying what you're showcasing, what you're talking about, what you're sharing, the future of what it means to be aware human beings that live as themselves, but also navigate this thick, dense conditioning field that we're in. We're here because of that conditioning field. So there's, it's not like we can learn, because sometimes when you learn about these mechanics, you learn about the Penta, you learn about the VA, you really feel this sense of helplessness. And
Yeah.
exactly what you said, like, am I even in charge of anything, or is everything just happening through me? Like, am I being, like, there's a difference. Like, am I being used or am I being utilized? And
Yeah.
without awareness, without you and I learning about these things, and not just learning about them theoretically, but actually witnessing them in our lives so that we can see how it shows up, that is the thing that's going to help us to be utilized by the consciousness program versus being used by the consciousness program. And that is the ultimate purpose of a Homo sapien in transitus, is to be in service of the program, because you are part of it, because you are something that's contributing to it, but not that you're blind to what's happening, and blind to the point that you live 80 years of your life or however long you live. And throughout that time, there is this inner feeling of, this isn't why I was here. I don't think I found myself. I don't think I found my life. I don't think I found my people. And that's a very sad existence for a Homo sapien in transitus, because genetically, we are designed to experience ourselves being represented through our life. So it just brings me the utmost joy to hear about your experiences, to hear about your trial and errors, to hear about how you're navigating as yourself in the world and guiding your family. And one of the things you said that's so key that I also witnessed myself doing is investing in those one-on-one relationships as a projector. Because yes, you're a part of the family Penta. Yes, you're a mother. Yes, you're a wife. Yes, you show up for your family in a certain way, but also your genius, your brilliance is in that one-on-one guidance.
Yeah.
And I think one last question that I want to ask you, because I'm really curious about your experience of it, rather than what the theory of it really is can you guide a manifestor? Is something that because I have some manifestors in my life, and I know that theoretically we talk about a manifestor aura being closed and repelling. And I have felt the density of that, like when the manifestor aura closes and they are going after what it is that they want to do or what it is that they want to initiate in the world. And yes, I experience the manifestor aura being closed then, but I also have experienced the openness of a manifestor aura, and sometimes also the openness towards guidance when they initiate it. So what is your experience with your manifestor daughter? Do you feel like you can lock into her? Maybe not for a very long time, but do you feel that you can lock into her and she is open for guidance?
Oh. It's really challenging to raise a manifestor, and I think that could be a whole episode by itself.
I have to say already, you're going to have to come back. I enjoyed this conversation so very much, and I know there's so much in your awareness that I want to pull out. So whenever next you want to come on, or I feel like it's the right time, I would absolutely love to have you back on.
Yeah, I would love that as well, because I feel, okay, I have so much more to share. And I think this is so important for everyone, for every young family. But even not even a young family, for everyone to just know and to become more aware of it. So yeah, I would love that. But to come back to to our daughter, there was one thing that Ross said, which really resonated with me, which got into my whole body, every cell that is like, okay. And he said, it is not enough to love your child. It's not enough to love your child. And I can so fully agree to that, because I love my children. I love them. as my parents, they love me, you know, they didn't want to harm me at all, you know, or my brother or sister. It's not about that. But if I have know that she was a manifestor, oof, that has been so, then it was a different story. It's so helpful for me to know that she's a manifestor, but she's not letting me to guide her. No, a short answer to that question: she's not letting me to. She's no, and I have, you know, but I know that I feel very safe for her, and I know she knows that I can see her because she's showing a lot of anger to me, and I know that she knows that she can show it to me. Um, yeah, so well, I have a lot to say, but if it's yeah, she's not no, she's not letting me. And she had the channel of awareness, so she's also she's compromising me in that channel. So it's always her way of thinking, and it's really hard. Yeah, it's a challenge.
That's such a humbling experience for an ego projector.
I
You
know, I
it's
know. Yeah, but at the same time, I'm so enjoying to watch her because there's such a. She looks like me, you know. We're sharing the same birthday, so we're both the cross of consciousness. And by the way, I thought that was very special, but I have so many friends of our daughter, their mothers, sharing their birthday as well. So I think it's a really common thing to share the birthday with your child or as a mother. It's fascinating. But anyway, um, cross of consciousness. So she looks like me. So my parents, my sister, everyone who knew me as a child say, "Whoa, she really looks like you." And she does, but she doesn't. You know, that is that manifestor energy. That's wow. It's so cool to observe. And she's not afraid to speak, to talk. It's really her superpower. You know, last week there was a singer in the street and he was setting up everything and she was just walking to him. "Can I sing? Can I have a go?" That is something I would never have done. I wouldn't dare. And then they said, "Yeah, of course." You know, they all a bit like, okay, yeah, 5-year-old. She was 4 at that point. But they needed electricity. And she said, "I really want to sing in the microphone." I said, "Okay, well, let's wait." And then that singer, that artist, he asked her, "What do you want to sing? You know, do you have any songs? I can. We have Disney, maybe Frozen." And she says, "No, I have my own songs. No thanks." You know, that confidence. You know, this is. Oh, and yeah. Then I'm just smiling, you know, from ear to ear, and then I'm thinking, yeah, this is just Manifestor, and yeah, that it's really joyful to watch that, to observe that, and to see her doing that kind of things, and then telling her, yeah, this is not natural for everyone to do so. And then, yeah, in the end, he didn't sing in the microphone because they hadn't had the electricity, but we will come back to that. So there's a lot of joy in raising a manifestor as well. But it's hard when you want to give them guidance. That's really hard. So yeah.
the question that I have coming from that is like, okay, their ability, and I know that your second child is a manifesting generator, right? So
Yeah.
that's an open and enveloping aura.
Yeah.
So he is someone that also has a manifesting channel, which can show up very differently, right? But there is this sense of openness to the projector focus.
Yeah.
And
Yeah.
it can feel very different to lock into a generator aura versus to be around a manifestor. But I think the question that I have is, okay, you feel like your manifestor is not open to your guidance, but Is she open to sharing awareness with you? Is she open to your outer authority and then running that through her own inner authority to see if it's something that fits well with her?
Yeah, I think so. I think that's definitely there. Yeah. She's an emotional, so I'm really trying, and that I was planning. So I'm in the now, knowing, and she's not. She needs more time. So we are both really working on that. Yeah, and I think let me say I'm trying to be more laid back, more watching, more observing than constantly interfering with her. For example, we have a projector. It's a light projector, and it's when we turn off the lights, it's showing fishes that are moving on the walls, and we do that before bedtime. And then this is just an example. She is just doing that, and then she has a new idea. So she wants to do it somewhere else, and then she has a new idea again, and she wants to do it somewhere else, and then a new idea. And then, if I didn't know she was a manifestor, I would have said, oh, can we please just lay down and watch? Can we please enjoy this game you just invented? And now I know, okay, no, she's not here to do it. She is here to follow her urges and to just go into the next thing and go into the next thing. And then the generator is just playing at it and using out all of his energy. And she's asking, she's asking, come, let's do this. And he's saying, yes, yes, yes. And then he's no, it's so funny to observe. And now I'm just more watching and see, are they still safe? Is there something that is really dangerous here that might harm them? Or can I just, can I just watch and let it go that I would like to just watch and not running around all the time, but can I just watch for myself and let them do their things? And then when I feel it's now time to go to bed, I say to her, okay, let's go. And then I try to give her some time to unwind while I know my son can just run around madly and then he will fall asleep at some point. And if I didn't know that, I would have said, you have to unwind as well, because that is how I work, how I am designed. But that is not necessarily healthy for him. So it's just, it's just learning, getting all those awareness, and mostly as a parent, try to step back and let them do their things, because they are fully intelligent themselves. They don't need us in that. We need to, as a mind-centered parent, we just need to keep them safe. We need to give them food. We need to give them shelter and create possibilities that they can develop skills and create their own awareness. But we don't need to learn them or teach them what's good, what's wrong, what shouldn't or what should not be done. And I think that's a big difference. And that, not sure if that's the answer to your question, but
It was the answer to my question and then some more. And I couldn't agree more. I can just, when I'm witnessing you and I'm hearing you, I can just see an empowered projector raising empowered children. And this is the point of human design. This is why you and I do the work that we do. This is why we're in this system. And it is such a joy to witness that in you and to hear about it. So thank you so much for coming on to the show and having this wonderful conversation with me.
Yeah, well, very welcome. And thank you so much for having me.